So thanks again for said it's really almost impossible to capture 102 years in a few minutes. But that was our sister. And she was also an active member of the Deer Creek congregation. So she will be dearly missed by all of us, brothers and sisters and friends. And of course, most importantly, her family. So now I invite Brother Ronald Nance as he will now give a spiritual funeral talk.
You walk into any cemetery, a mausoleum, on each plaque, you'll see date of birth dash date of death. This talk isn't about Olga's birth. It isn't about her death. It's about the dash. It's about everything she did between the 102 years that she lived. It's about what she believed and what it tells us about her loving Heavenly Father, Jehovah God. Who was Olga to you? Was she big sister Olga? Was she mommy? Was she auntie Olga? Sister T or Sister Thompson? Or was she Miss Olga? While Olga had a number of admirable qualities that we're going to consider, what would be her dash between 1922 and 2025? In one word, it would be faith. Faith would be Olga Thompson's dash. Hebrews 11:1 tells us that faith is the assured expectation of things hoped for. Now, Moulton's and Milligan's vocabulary of the Greek Testament suggests that rendering faith is the title deed of things hoped for. Olga Thompson carried that title deed with her. If the fruitages of the Spirit were a garment, faith would have been Olga's favorite garment. She never took it off. She always wore it. She lived it. If you noticed in your programs, our dear sister and mommy was baptized on May 24th in 1952. And for 72 unblemished years, she lived up to her dedication to Jehovah. Now, that included seeing and understanding the horrors of World War II, living in two different continents, the loss of her beloved husband, as well as the loss of 12 other siblings, including health crisis, none of which could have been easy. As was mentioned in that program, she is one of 16 kids and was known as Big Sister Olga. She lovingly took care of her younger siblings, and that nurturing quality followed her the rest of her life, the rest of her spiritual life. Mommy had numerous spiritual daughters and granddaughters that she loved working with in the ministry. And if you are mommy's friend or if you were a Bible study of hers, you were part of Olga's family. She made everyone feel like her family. It was normal to see circuit overseers and Bethelites in their home. That was just part of her generous nature. Sister Thompson married the love of her life, Harry Thompson, in London, England in 1954, and they were blessed with four beautiful children, Annette, Jasmine, James, and Lydia. As was mentioned, Olga loved her family. She also loved her grandchildren. All throughout her life, she spoke of her love for her family and her grandchildren. If you ever visited her home, you would see it on the wall, her love for family and her grandchildren. Olga also had plenty of spiritual daughters that she enjoyed working within the ministry. And her and one of her ministry partners who loved gardening, they got away with a lot of things that we couldn't do in this era of ring doorbells, right? Sometimes they go away from a door and maybe they pluck a dead leaf off of a plant or pull up a weed as they were exiting the home. Again, just showing her love for the ministry as well as her love for Jehovah's creation. Now, uh, Mommy loved preaching. She preached on every opportunity. She went out in service on Saturdays. She went out in service on Sundays. And she even went out in the pre-study preaching work. If you don't know what that is, that's before the book study we used to have. They would go out and preach before the book study. Another area that Mommy excelled in when it came to preaching is she wasn't afraid to preach informally. Sister Thompson preached to everyone. Every opportunity she got, she was preaching. The program mentioned that not a day went by where our dear Sister Thompson wouldn't talk to someone. I think that's an exaggeration sometimes when we say that, but for Olga, that's an understatement. It was really like an hour. An hour didn't go by where she didn't talk to someone about her faith, her love for Jehovah. And that just showed through all her life. One of her grandchildren talked about it. She said she mentioned the quality of her grandmother that sticks out to her was her determination. When she was able to walk, but her mobility was starting to slow down, we worked together each week in the ministry, and when picking her up, she would get in the car and say, "Come on, foot." Give her troubled leg a tap and swing it into the car. She loved Jehovah and loved telling people about him, and she wouldn't allow a bad leg to stop her. But that was Olga. Her daughter, Annette, said her memories of Mummy was her constant faith. Despite going through many trials, breaking her leg in her 60s, falling and hitting her head, requiring surgery and rehab in her 80s, and finally breaking her hip, which required surgery again and rehab in the late 90s, she never gave up. Even when doctors said she wouldn't make it because of her age, she proved them wrong. She not only survived the hip surgery, she went on to walk again with the aid of a walker. Then as she aged, she ended up in a wheelchair. And I remember her saying all the time, "I love life," and she did. It was evident by her constant singing, joking, and dancing in her wheelchair. And towards the end of her life, her zeal for the truth only got stronger. See, Mommy's extended care facility, Winborn, became her new territory. She preached to everyone. She preached to the staff. She preached to the students. She preached to her doctors. A clergyman even got a good witness from Mommy at Winborn. She enjoyed talking about Jehovah. And as was mentioned, if she wasn't in the ministry, she was in the garden. She loved Jehovah's creation. Now, unfortunately, her children didn't inherit that green thumb, but her other daughter, Lori Thompson, did. And they often shared beautiful conversations about Jehovah's creation and the plants that they enjoyed nurturing and caring for. Another nice quality about Mommy is that she was so grateful. It's easy to be grateful for the things, the big things, but Sister Thompson was grateful for the little things. Nothing escaped her notice. And she would always say, thank you, dear, or thank you, darling, for the littlest thing. And that's where we get her expression, thank you, dear, or you're such a dear, but not an antelope. That was one of Mommy's loving expressions. She was also very positive. She used to come visit us in Connecticut when she could walk, and she'd spend about a month with us during the summer. And one summer, she had a severe injury with one of her legs, and it was a $600 hospital bill. And we were so depressed and discouraged. And Mommy just said, I'm worth $600, aren't I? Don't worry about it. And that just really lightened our spirit. So, so positive. So as Brother Smith mentioned, we don't have enough time to talk about her qualities, but it really helps us to appreciate that at times like this, when we lose someone we love, we need comfort. And while grief may feel normal, it is unnatural for us to lose someone we love. It's a pain in our hearts. And the Bible details that pain that we experience. Abraham, when he lost his wife Sarah, he wept for days. Jacob, when he lost his son Joseph, the account says he was inconsolable. He wept for weeks. He said he was going to carry that pain with him to his grave. And even Jesus, when he saw Mary and Martha and others weeping, the account tells us that Jesus gave way to tears, even though he knew he was about to perform a miracle. Our pain really does not go unnoticed by Jehovah. Please open your Bibles. Sometimes we think we're all alone when we experience this type of pain, but if you open your Bibles to Psalm the 34th chapter, notice what verse 18 says. And that's Psalm 34 and verse 18. And there it reads, Jehovah is close to the brokenhearted. He saves those who are crushed in spirit. You see, death breaks our heart. It crushes our spirit. But this account tells us that Jehovah is close to us in these moments, that he gives us what we need to endure. And when we lose a loved one, it often gives us an opportunity to reflect on the fond memories that we have of our loved ones. That can be comforting, can it? Now, for a few moments, we're going to hear from two of Olga's brothers, Glenn and Hugh Demetrius. And they're going to share some of their experiences about their sisters. And normally we would do it live, but because they're in Jamaica, we created the video. So we're going to hear Glenn first and then Hugh Demetrius' experience of their sister.
What are my remembrances of Big Sister Anne? What are my remembrances of Big Sister Anne? She was the most kind-hearted person you could find. Because she was our big sister, she contributed to our molding, making the person that we are. She was the most generous. Favorite of all Ruby and Alex's children would have been John. And even toward the end, she would every year send a ticket so that John and his wife could come to Canada. That was her generosity. But she's gone to sleep. And that is why we are here for this memorial service. One friend in England said that because I was the last in the list, then according to the normal scheme of things, I could quite possibly have to bear the pain of seeing all of my siblings dying. And now there are only three of us left. And what she's saying comes to mind forcefully. But yet still, there's a positive spin to it. And what's the positive spin? Well, I've suffered the sad of seeing them die. And I hope to have the wonderful experience with glad to see them coming back in resurrection. We are a proud family. We have much to be thankful for. Our parents inculcated in us a love for Jehovah and a love for family. And there is another generation coming behind us. And we want to encourage this other generation that comes behind us to look at the example that we led. Yes, and follow the love for family and the love of Jehovah. Psalm 129 is my favorite psalm. We will keep enduring to the end. That is my determination. That is our determination. All of us, as a part of the Demetrius clan, we will continue to hold the name high, and Jehovah will be praised as a result of our conduct. Thank you.
Oh, I fondly remember my dear sister Olga. We had to call her Sister Olga because she was so much older than we are. But I have such fond memories of her. And there are two things that I can remember, and that is her generosity. She, even when she was in England, she made remittances so that we as a family could be cared for. But even when she was at home in Jamaica, when she used to visit on holidays, I remember her carrying little goodies and like sweets and sweet soaps and things like that, just to care for us. And I really fondly remember that. One thing I know that characterizes her is a family person. It doesn't matter where you live. She is always keeping in touch. In the old days, we used to use postcards, then letters, then we moved to telephone, and she always used these to communicate with us. But one thing I remember, her memory is fantastic. She remembers me when I was 5 and 6 years old, when I was 15, 16. There's some of the things I never even remember, and she jogged my memory and brought them back to me. But the outstanding thing is that with older people, most of them remember only the old time things. She remember last week. She remembers yesterday. She has a fantastic memory. She really loved her family. She cared for us. And I remember with fondness my dear sister Olga. I look forward to seeing her in the resurrection, which is so nearby. And this is a time that I'm looking for with great anticipation.
As we can hear from their expressions, we can hear their hope and Olga's hope, the hope that the Bible gives out for our loved ones who have fallen asleep in death. You see, death was never a part of God's purpose for humankind. Although nature has a natural life cycle, they were never created to live forever. Man was made in God's image, in their likeness. It was God's purpose that we live forever. Please notice again in your Bibles, Genesis, the second chapter. This time we're going to read verses 15 through 17. It's Genesis, the second chapter. And notice command that was given to Adam there. Verse 15, Jehovah then took the man and settled him in the Garden of Eden to cultivate it and to take care of it. Jehovah also gave this command to the man. From every tree of the garden you may eat to satisfaction. But as for the tree of knowledge of good and bad, you must not eat from it. For in the day you eat from it, you will certainly die. So logic helps us to appreciate that if Adam and Eve had not eaten from that tree, they would have continued to live forever. Why do we know that? Because Jehovah also said, become fruitful and fill the earth. Now, the simplest brain can help us to appreciate that it would have taken thousands of years for Adam and Eve to fill the earth. Jehovah created them to live forever. But because of Adam's disobedience, all of his offspring have inherited sin, imperfection, and the result, death. Jehovah knows that death can be painful. But as was mentioned, the Bible has given us a hope for our loved ones. But before we look at that hope, let's look at what death is, because there's a lot of misconceptions about death. Some religions teach that when we die, there's some part of us that lives on. But let's notice what the Bible teaches us about death. Ecclesiastes, the 9th chapter. We're going to look at verses 5, 6, and 10. It's Ecclesiastes 9 and verses 5, 6, and 10. And notice what is stated there. It says, "For the living know that they will die. But as for the dead, they know nothing at all. Nor do they have any more reward, because all memory of them is forgotten." And verse 6, "And their love and their hate and their jealousy have already perished, and they no longer have any share in what is done under the sun." And verse number 10, "Whatever your hand finds to do, do with all your might, for there is no work, nor planning, nor knowledge, nor grave, nor wisdom in the grave where you are going." See, the Bible teaches us that once a person dies, they simply cease to exist. There is nothing after that. But does that mean there's no hope for our loved ones? Again, the Bible helps us to appreciate that there will be a resurrection for millions who have died. And that resurrection hope is made possible by the ransom sacrifice of Jesus Christ. Let's notice that in Matthew 20 and verse 28. It's Matthew 20 and verse 28. And it reads there, "Just as the Son of Man came not to be ministered to, but to minister and give his life as a ransom in exchange for many." So this ransom that's mentioned in the Bible has three elements connected with it. Number one is a payment. Two, it is a relief. And number three, it corresponds to the value of what was lost. So through that ransom of Jesus Christ, all those who have died can have an opportunity to receive life again. Jehovah has appointed his Son over the resurrection hope. Let's look at that in John, the 5th chapter. That's John, 5th chapter, and verses 28 and 29. 28 and 29 reads, "Do not be amazed at this, for the hour is coming in which all those in the memorial tombs will hear his voice and come out. Those who did good things to a resurrection of life, and those who practice vile things to a resurrection of judgment." So contrary to the false teaching that some part of us lives on after death, Jesus teaches that the resurrection is the hope for the vast majority of humankind. But now this hope includes two groups of people. So let's look at this in Acts, the 24th chapter and verse 15. That's Acts 24 and verse 15. And notice what is written there. It says, "And I have hope toward God, which hope these men also look forward to, that there's going to be a resurrection of both the righteous and the unrighteous." So the Apostle Paul is helping us to appreciate that two groups of people will come back in the resurrection, righteous and the unrighteous. Well, who are the righteous? These would include those in Bible times like Daniel, Noah, Moses, and others who faithfully served Jehovah throughout their life. The righteous in our time also includes millions of faithful individuals in our day who have fallen asleep in death. Now, who makes up the resurrection of the unrighteous? Well, again, it includes those in Bible times who didn't have an opportunity to know Jehovah. It also includes those in our day who have died, who didn't have an opportunity to learn about Jehovah. That would include those from non-Christian faiths like Buddhists, Hindu, Muslims, and others. It would also include those who had disabilities, who never learned how to read or to write. And because of Jehovah's perfect sense of justice, the unrighteous also includes those who had their life cut short, who had their voices taken away from them. It includes those whose voices were lost in concentration camps, genocides, wars, violent acts, natural disasters, accidents, diseases. No group will be left out. We can be confident that Jehovah will judge all mercifully and with justice. Now, in view of the foregoing, we really need to answer 5 questions about the resurrection, because we understand what it is, but do we also understand what it is not? Because the resurrection can be kind of gray. So let's answer those questions. Will everyone who has ever lived be resurrected? The Bible's answer is clear. No. Individuals like Adam and Eve, Judas Iscariot, and others who directly oppose Jehovah God will not receive a resurrection. So not everyone will be resurrected. Here's another one. Would there be enough space on earth for everyone to be resurrected? For instance, experts say 20 billion people have lived on this earth. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, that number is wrong. Let's say it's 24 billion people. Well, Earth's land surface is about 56 million square miles. That's enough land for 24 billion people to have 1.5 acres of land. So we can see how it starts to make sense, right? Now, what about the third question? Will everyone be resurrected at the same time? Can you imagine what would happen if 20 billion people came back at the same time? It would be utter confusion, wouldn't it? Well, again, the Bible tells us in 1 Corinthians 14:40 that Jehovah is the God of order. And at Matthew 19:30, relating to the anointed, it says the last will be first. So clarity on how they will come back from the Watchtower 922, page 20 footnote states this. The resurrection may start with those who died faithful during the last days, and then may proceed backward, generation by generation. If this proves to be the case, each generation will have an opportunity to welcome back those whom they had known personally. Whatever the case, the scriptures speak of a proper order with regard to the heavenly resurrection, and we can assume that the earthly resurrection will be carried out in that same orderly manner. Doesn't that make so much sense when we think about the resurrection in that way? How about this question? Where will they be resurrected? Well, again, the Watchtower of 1220, study article number 50 says, it's logical to believe they will be resurrected near their loved ones. How about the 5th and final question? Will our loved ones be resurrected with the same body? The Watchtower, 1220, and the JW Library, Bible Questions Answered, what is the resurrection states? Jehovah will resurrect the same person, not the same body. Why is that comforting to know? Because oftentimes the last time we saw our loved ones, they were not in good shape, were they? And we also understand that the scriptures say that dust you are, dust you will return. So they won't come back with the same body. They'll come back with a healthy body, and Jehovah will restore their exact personality and their memory. Why can we have that confidence that Jehovah can remember our loved ones in every detail? Well, think about it. There are 30 sextillion stars in our known universe. Now, that's a 3 with 25 zeros behind it. We can't even comprehend that number, can we? Yet Isaiah 40:26 tells us Jehovah calls all of them by name. So now that helps us to understand why Jesus could say at John 5:29, do not marvel at this. See, Jesus is saying, the resurrection, that's nothing. I was there when my Father created the universe and everything in it. I was there when the earth was created. Do not marvel at the resurrection. Our loved ones are going to come back exactly the way Jehovah plans them to. That was Olga's hope, to be resurrected back to life, to be reunited with her family in a paradise earth with perfect health, where the aging process reverses itself and we grow young back to a vibrant age. Now that, again, her faith showed clear right all the way through her life. Maybe you may have noticed it in a slide presentation, a letter she wrote to her brother who had experienced a health crisis. And this is what she wrote to him. She said, "Dear Brother John, I'm trying to write you to tell you that I love you and to get better. You have a good wife helping you. Thank Jehovah. Give her my love. The new world seems so near. See you there. Warm love from Olga." Do you hear her faith in the new world? Can you see it, friends? Again, another one of her daughters talked about her faith. She says, whenever she talked about the paradise, it was as if she was already there. Her eyes would get bright, her tone of voice would get excited, and she would speak about the new world and the perfect conditions that she looked forward to. Her faith was so strong, and that is what will help me to keep my faith strong, because I want to see her again. As we watch those that we love get older and decline physically, that decline sometimes is accompanied by a mental decline. And while Olga was never diagnosed with dementia or Alzheimer's or anything like that, she sometimes had challenges distinguishing between what was real and what was not. And so to her family, you know that could not have been easy for you. So to Annette and Lyle, to Jasmine and Andy, to James and Lydia, thank you for the way you dignified Mommy despite those challenges. In our second to last conversation with Mommy, again, focused on the future, she asked one of her children, in the new world, can I live with you until Daddy comes back? And they said, of course you can, Mommy. And never thinking about herself, she said, and we have to go get my brother Glenn from Lemon Ridge because he lives by himself. He can live with us too. Always thinking about her family. But you know, Olga's situation is a lot like the prophet Daniel. Daniel served Jehovah from his youth up. He lived through the destruction of Jerusalem, 70 years of captivity in Babylon, and was still serving the king of Persia well into his late 90s. Do you remember how Daniel felt? He wanted to go home with the rest of those Israelites that were going back home, but he couldn't. Do you remember what the angel said to Daniel? He called him a desirable, precious man, right? And he said, you will fall asleep, you will rest, but you will wake up for your lot at the end of the days. And that's the same hope that our dear sister Olga has. She has gone to rest, but she will wake up for her lot at the end of the days. You know, there's one final lesson that we can learn from Olga's living condition. If you know any of your brothers and sisters who are isolated or in extended care facilities or assisted living, visit them. And if you can't visit them, send them cards, phone them, reach out to them. Because your efforts are Jehovah's answer to their prayers. We can't possibly know how hard it is to be around people who don't know Jehovah all day, every day. Jehovah has not abandoned them. May we not abandon our elderly brothers and sisters. So please, friends, for the final few minutes, I'd like you to think about that powerful resurrection hope. You see, all of us have that same common denominator. We've all lost someone that we love dearly. So please, for the next few minutes, just imagine that you are in that new world. And you wake up feeling better than you did the day before. You say a heartfelt prayer to your Heavenly Father, thanking Him for allowing you to be there in that new world. You eat another breakfast and your taste buds come alive again as they did the day before. And you can't help but think, is this the day that my loved one is going to come back? Is this the day? So as you look at your assignments that you have been given for the day, at 9 o'clock, you notice that you and 800 others are assigned to attend the demolition of Toronto General Hospital, the Hospital for Sick Children, the Princess Margaret Cancer Center, and Mount Sinai Hospital, which in Satan's old world were all on the same block. And then after lunch, you have a Bible study with 20 individuals that have been resurrected. And then maybe at 3 o'clock, you have to be present for the upheaval of Mount Pleasant Cemetery, the largest cemetery in Toronto. Then all of a sudden, there's a knock at your door. 2 resurrection attendants tell you, all your assignments for the day have been canceled. Your loved one is going to be resurrected today at 4 o'clock. With tears in your eyes, you thank those attendants as they leave your home. And you get rid of the pictures that you kept from the old world because you don't need them anymore. And maybe for the first time in 5, 10, 15 years or more, you have to set an extra plate at the dinner table. And you think, I'm going to make their favorite meal because they don't know what perfectly healthy food tastes like. See, Olga used to love the oxtail rice and beans we bring down from, we come visit her. So I'm sure maybe there'll be some fruit that tastes like oxtail in the new world. Now, in the meantime, 2 resurrection attendants are escorting your loved one to your home. And because our loved ones come back with their memory intact, they're just going to think it's the next day. And they're going to have questions for those attendants. I can imagine Mommy asking them, where is Winborn? How come none of this looks familiar? Is my family okay? And then one of the attendants looks at her and says, Dear Sister Thompson, I can't answer those questions for you, but don't worry. Your loved ones will answer each one of those questions for you because they don't want to spoil it for her, right? And so as she's walking along the trail to that home, she can't help but notice the beautiful flowers and the sun as warm as it's ever been. And she looks off to her right and she sees 2 more attendants. walking a 10-year-old boy home. And that little boy has the same questions. Where's my mom and dad? How come none of this looks familiar? I just want to go home. And she looks to the left and sees two more attendants escorting a family of 3. And they're saying to the attendants, but wait a minute, our home was destroyed in a tornado. And they tell them the same thing. Don't worry, your loved ones will answer all those questions for you. And after what seems like an eternity, they escort Olga to the most beautiful house she's ever seen. And they say, Sister Thompson, you're home. Your family is waiting for you. And then there's that knock at the door. And Lydia and James and Jasmine run to the door and they hug mommy and they cry. They hug mommy and cry some more because it's the best hug they've ever had in their life. And because he just can't believe what your eyes are seeing, I imagine him pulling her inside and Jasmine saying, Mommy, how many kids do I have? When did I get married? What's my favorite food? And his mommy answers every one of those questions. Tears stream down. And then James might say, Mommy, you're in the new world. And she says, go away from me, child. And then Annette says, Mommy, it's true. Open the envelope that the attendants gave you. And as she opens this big 10 by 12 envelope that the attendant gave her, she pulls out the most beautiful wooden carved frame with diamonds all around it. And inside that frame, it's not a death certificate. It's not a birth certificate. It's a resurrection certificate. Because I believe Jehovah wants our loved ones to remember the day he brought them back. If we can remember when they died or an anniversary, how much more so do we want to remember the day our loved ones came back? And inside of that certificate, there's a beautiful picture of mommy at maybe 25 years of age. And she's doing what she always does. She's reading the Bible. But underneath that has the most beautiful words. And because mommy can't believe it, Annette says, Mommy, read it. Read it. And imagine that that resurrection certificate says this about your loved one. It says, my dear daughter, Olga, because of your faithfulness, endurance, and love for me and my son, the King, your name was written down in my book of remembrance. You fell asleep in death and Satan's old world. But today, the merits of Christ Jesus' ransom sacrifice has been applied in your behalf, and you've been resurrected to life in my new world. Dear Olga, welcome back to life, everlasting life. It is at that moment, tears will stream down her face as she realizes she did fall asleep, but her God, Jehovah, remembered her for her faith. And at that moment, her 12 siblings that passed before her all walk into the room and welcome her back. Basil, Horace, Keith, Peter, Alma, Daphne, Phyllis, Alice, Cynthia, Hope, Maisie, and Nisi are all there to welcome her back. And they go outside to enjoy the most beautiful feast they ever had. That's the family reunion I want to be at, don't you? No, we can't be dogmatic about it because we just don't know how the resurrection will take place. Maybe Jehovah will even allow us to see it when they come back. Because 8 resurrections were performed in front of eyewitnesses. We just don't know. But we know Jehovah is going to do something special for us. So we're all benefited by being here, friends, because it helps us to appreciate that life is brief, that it is but a moment. It also helps us to reflect on how we're living our lives. If we're giving Jehovah our best, if we're imitating Olga's faith in her Creator. And then finally, it helps us to reflect on the powerful hope of the resurrection as we have just done. So if you're hearing this information for the very first time, please reach out to any one of Jehovah's Witnesses about a free home Bible study and how you can learn more about Jehovah's wonderful promises for the future. And may all the rest of us remain faithful so that we can be reunited with Olga Thompson and the rest of our loved ones.
Thank you very much, Brother Nance, for those comforting words from our source, the Bible. We really appreciate it, and I'm sure the family and all of us who have been privileged to be here truly appreciate those fine words and comfort. We will now close as we talk, as we usually do, with song number 139, appropriately titled, See Yourself When All Is New. We'll have a closing prayer, and then we're going to invite you to just stay back. We have a special video and then some housekeeping and special announcements. Just to let you know also that there is 181 on Zoom, 181 in person and 347 on Zoom. So all 528 of us enjoyed your talk. Thank you. So now we'll have a song, as we said, have a closing prayer and then some announcements. So let's take song number 139, appropriately titled, See Yourself When All Is New. Let us have a word of prayer. We have a special video that the family would like you to watch. And then, of course, we have some announcements that we want to share with you as well. So let's take a quick look at this short special video.
soon, and we're going to sing and dance in the new world. You hear, dear?
Really adds new meaning to the phrase that a picture is worth 1,000 words. And we could definitely tell that she had a life lived. And that's the way we want to remember her, for the good that she has done for herself, her family, and towards Jehovah himself. That's a few announcements and housekeeping. We are going to invite you, if you didn't see the reel at the beginning, that you can stay back and you can get a chance to see a full story of Olga's life in pictures as well. We know it's a really large family and, of course, a lot of friends. As we said, 528. So we have created breakout rooms for those who are on Zoom. There'll be 8 breakout rooms, and we've divided them so that you can associate with those that you may know. So there's a Lemon Ridge breakout group, a Caldera, a Jamaica family breakout room, a USA family breakout room, a UK family breakout room. There's a Thompson family US breakout room, a Thompson family UK breakout room, and a friends and family general breakout room. Now I need some water. Well, you can tell the Demetrius family is a huge family. And how do you fit 100 years of service without having twice the amount of friends? So pick the breakout room that you want to go on Zoom. And for here at the hall, we'll have some more announcements as well. Just a quick one. Refreshments are being provided in the lobby. And we also want to say thanks to the sisters in the Deer Creek congregation for arranging, for contributing, and of course, working hard. So when you're leaving, please have some refreshments. And then a message from the family. It says, the families of Olga Thompson would like to thank everyone for their prayers, loving support, and kindness during this difficult time. So brothers, in conclusion, let us continue to remember the family in the weeks and the months to come, because we all have one good hope that Olga shared, which is the resurrection hope in Revelation. If you can't remember anything else from the public talk, as Brother Nan says, it is a secure hope that Revelation 21 gives all of us if we live our life in the way Olga did. So let's honor her with that. Thanks again for coming, and again, have a good evening.
Children lie. Live by our Father's words until the moon is no more. There is the peace we have been waiting for. We will feel His love